Hello, and welcome to this introduction video for a series of videos that I'm going to be working on, which I have called Precon Decon for Magic the Gathering. What is Precon Decon? I will be looking at old pre-constructed decks from Magic the Gathering's history and deconstructing them. I'll be looking at them and the cards in them and just kind of having a bit of a nostalgic reminiscence about the contents and just kind of giving my opinions on them. But what are precons? If you're new to the game, you might only be familiar with the commander precons. But the old pre-constructed decks used to be these kind of like 60 card pre-constructed decks that you just got in a little box like this. And they were good to go straight out of the box. Very similar to the commander products we get these days, but these were obviously only 60 card decks, and there were a lot more of them. There were usually about 4 or 5 per set. So there were a lot of them. Just to give you an idea of how far we're going back on this. So 1996 was the first Tempest, and that was the first set which had pre-constructed theme decks. That went all the way through up until 2008, and that's when we got a rebrand in Shards of Alara. They were called then Intro decks, and these then there was like some changes to kind of how they were packaged. This is when we start sort of seeing them included, like free booster packs get included with them, and that runs up until 2014, up to Eldritch Moon, which was the last set to have intro decks. And that's when Planeswalker decks were then introduced, and that was starting with Kaladesh. And they ran for, I was actually surprised to say, about 6 years, which it didn't feel like 6 years. But they ran up until 2020, and then it was Zendikar Rising, I think, when Planeswalker decks were then discontinued. And we have what we have now, which is Commander decks are incorporated into each set's product line. Commander decks are now kind of the de facto pre-constructed product for new players to pick up and get into the game that way. So what I'm actually doing with this series of videos, so these are all the sets that have pre-constructed decks, as I said, so it's from Tempest up to Eldritch Moon, and there's some core sets as well. So considering each of these sets has sort of like 4 or 5 pre-constructed decks within them, we're looking at about 300 decks here, which I'm going to look at in sort of like quick sort of 10-minute videos where I just look at deck list and kind of like what the intended play experience of that deck was. Maybe how much fun it could have been to play, like how it could have been better. Really, honestly, just talking about it because honestly, I just really like to talk about Magic the Gathering. But yeah, so it's a big project. So yeah, I wonder. I hope. My plan is to do all of these sets, and then maybe in the future I'll look at Planeswalker decks, which needs leads into what won't I be looking at, or at least for now. So, as I think anyone can agree, Magic the Gathering has a lot of products. Even within that timeline I've looked at, there's so many like side products, annex products, I think they're called. So you have things like the old dual decks. You have kind of like the game night in a box sets like game night, but also there's older sets like Beatdown, I think was one, and Battle Royale and stuff like that. There's also stuff like old Plane Chase and Arch Enemy. There's event decks, there's challenger decks, there's like these like welcome decks, as we've said, Planeswalker decks. So I might eventually get to these. I might look at these if if I do all those pre-construct decks and then I do Planeswalker decks, and then if I really want to, I might take a look at these. So these are maybes. These might be like, I don't know, like view or sub goals or something. I don't know, on special occasions. What I won't be looking at all is Commander products. There are plenty of channels out there that already do a great job of looking at Commander pre-constructed decks. I'm not an expert in Commander. It's not a format I'm very familiar with. So, I won't really have much to say about them. And as I say, there's plenty of channels out there looking at Commander products already. I'm interested really in looking at the old stuff, being a bit nostalgic, and just kind of looking at kind of janky old decks from the 90s and early thousands. So that's what Magic the Gathering Precon Decon is going to be. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the upcoming videos that I'll be producing.